From the case of the Amazon.com and Alibaba Group, we may learn the following lessons about the digital transformation. So in case of the Amazon.com, they are running lots of different businesses, from books and electronics online retail shops, and they also do the Kindles, application stores, phones, studios, videos on demand, Amazon warehouse services, and marketplaces. And in those a lot of different business areas, they are competing with a lot of different competitors. So business boundaries among industries are collapsing in digital economy. Amazon does not belong to any single industry. As you see on the left-hand side of this slide, Amazon's business is in a lot of different business areas, and they are competing with a lot of different market players in those markets. So remember that when you do the industry analysis, you have to think about that the traditional boundary of the industry is not that important anymore. So it's still important to do the industry analysis as the starting point to build the business strategy, but please remember that the given boundaries of the existing business is collapsing among the industries. So Amazon does not belong to any single industry, and a lot of different companies are in the same situation. And second, therefore, it's hard to identify the competitors in traditional way. It's also related to the radar screen analysis I proposed in the conducting the competitor analysis. Traditionally, the industry was very clearly defined. So in that case, we may only focus on the dynamics and the trends of the direct competitor. That might be okay, but nowadays it's very difficult to identify the competitors in traditional way. So we have to look at the dynamics and trends of the indirect competitors, and also more importantly, the dynamics and the trends of the potential competitors as well. Indirect competitors are trying to propose the same customer values to our target customers, but they are providing totally different products or services to the customers from our company. But nowadays, products or the services, the importance of the products and services are not as important as before. The customer values they create and deliver to the customers are more important. Actually, the reason the customers are buying the products and services from a certain company is because of to enjoy the values they could get from those products and services. So as long as the companies are providing the same customer values to the customers, the differences in the products or the services are not that important. And also, in case of the potential investors, they do not provide even the same values to the customers. So the products and services of the potential competitors are totally different from our products, and also at the same time the values the potential competitors are delivering to the customers are different from the values we create and deliver to the customers. But in the near future, there's a possibility that the potential competitor may provide a similar value to our target customer, and by doing that, they could be they could threaten the business of ours. So that's why we have to be very cautious in the dynamics and trends of the competitors. And companies need to be very flexible when competing with other companies, because as I have emphasized, it's hard to identify the competitors in traditional way, and nobody knows when when any company can become the competitor of our business. So that's why the companies need to be very flexible when competing with other companies. And finally, it's still important to know and leverage the existing core competencies of the existing businesses. Even though the businesses you are running might be totally different in the digital transformation from your existing businesses, and the skills required in the new business might be different from the existing businesses. It's better for you to identify and leverage the core competencies you retained in your existing businesses to apply such competencies in the new businesses in the digital transformations. Okay? So finally, this is an exercise. Finally, identify the customer's pain point and customer's pain point of the traditional gas station, and then try to exercise your creativity to find out creative solutions to mitigate such pain points. Okay, on the left-hand side box of this screen, there's a snapshot of the traditional gas station. Okay, so who knows, in the digital economy of the digital transformation era, we have no idea how such traditional gas station may change in the future. So in the future, the gas station might be totally different from the traditional gas station. So as I have emphasized in the earlier of today's class, digital transformation is not an option to the company, even to the traditional gas stations, but it's a must. And then because the surrounding environment is more uncertain, and there are lots of the surprises in the external environment of the businesses including the traditional gas stations. So they want to adopt a new strategy in the digital transformation. Okay, and typically they are making a lot of mistakes. So one of the ways they are making is they simply making efficiencies, but maintaining the current structure of the entire gas station businesses. So they run the gas station businesses more effectively and efficiently. And that's the one way of that's one of the typical ways the companies are pursuing the digital transformation. But I told you that that's not the right approaches. You can achieve some improvements in the efficiencies and the effectiveness, but that's not changing your way of doing the business fundamentally. And another mistakes the companies are making is that they simply do some small experiments still without changing the existing businesses. So I already told that that's not the right way of doing the businesses in the digital transformation. And finally, there is another typical approaches the companies are pursuing. That's hiring a lot of people and creating a new department, and they try to get an exposure from the lot of startups from the Silicon Valleys. And I told you that that's also that is not a desirable way of doing the business in the digital economy. Okay, so you have to change the total. You have to change the way you do the business fundamentally in pursuing the digital transformations. Okay, but you have to maintain the core competencies you have in running the traditional gas station businesses. So think about creatively. I personally do not have any answers, but if we are having on the interactive discussions on the two-way discussions in the class, and we can think about a lot of different approaches. We can try a lot of different approaches and have a very intensive discussions about the future gas stations. But unfortunately, this is the one-way lecture of myself. But if you see those classes and think about what are the ways of creating the new values of running the future gas stations, you have to think two things. One is what is the customer's pains right now, okay, and then what could be the solutions to mitigate such pains, and then finally how do we structurally fundamentally change the existing gas stations, still retaining the core competencies. Right now, in the digital economy, a lot of startups are just flourishing. A lot of startups emerge, and some of the startups are very successful. And nowadays, a lot of people are interested in establishing their own startups. And in some cases, such a small startups can become the unicorn companies very quickly. Unicorn companies mean that the market value of the company becomes $1 billion US. Okay, so that means they become a giant company in a very short period of the time, very quickly. In Korea, last month, the richest entrepreneur in South Korea changed. So previously, the owner of the Samsung Group used to be the richest person in South Korea, but right now he became number 2, and then the founder of the Kakao Group became number 1 in terms of the wealth of the entire South Korea. And he set up a small startup of in the area of social networking services roughly 15 years ago. And he started his business from scratches. And he made a big fortune just in 15 years. And also a lot of big companies are thinking very seriously about running, creating and running startups. And in building the startups, there you have to choose a very systematic way. In most cases, the success rate of the startups are very low. That means that a lot of the startups will fail very quickly. So in order for the startups to sustain their business and survive, they have to follow a very structured way in pursuing the businesses. And one of the ways of creating and developing their business items is important. And the concept of the design thinking is developed and introduced by one of the design consulting firms named IDEO, which is on the west coast of the United States. According to the IDEO, the structured and systematic way of developing the business ideas may be divided into 5 different steps. The first step is empathizing the users and then the customers of the customers' pain and inconveniences. And then the second step of developing the business idea is the defining the problems. And then the third step is generating a lot of creative solutions. It's ideation of the creative solutions. And then the step number 4 is making the prototypes. Prototypes means some early version of the products or the services on a tangible shape. And then the final step of building the business idea is testing the rough early version of the product to the customers, to the potential customers, and then get the feedback from the customers. And then we do this 5-step process repeatedly. Again, observing the customers' inconveniences and pain, and then try to define the problems to address. And then the third step is ideation, creating a lot of different solutions. And then the next step is build the first version of the products with the minimum features. And then the final step is testing such early version of the product to the customers. So if you think about what could be the customer's pain points of the traditional gas station, and what could be the future of the gas station, and it's similar to it's a similar process you may go through in developing the business ideas of the new startups in design thinkings. Okay, so think about if you are thinking about doing your own business, and your own business is related to the current gas station businesses, and then you may go there and try to find out what could be the customer's pain points. So there are a lot of different ways to identify the customer pains. First one is, the most important thing is observations. You may observe a lot of the interactions and then the behaviors of the customers in the train station, in the gas station. And then you may notice something very slight, but that could occur a lot of inconveniences to the passengers or the drivers of the car. And from that moment, you can try to think about a lot of solutions. So one of the ways of identifying the customer's pain point is that observation. And then the second way of identifying the customer's pain point is engaging the customers. That means having some interviews and asking the customers what could be the problems in using the traditional gas stations and things like that. So from those activities, you may identify the customer's pain points. So it's open to your imagination. So I would rather not provide anything about the customer pain points. Based on your own experience and your own perspectives, identify the customer pain points might be totally different. Okay, so enjoy trying to find the customer pain points and exercise your creativity in thinking about a lot of solutions. And from the solutions, you may choose one of the great ideas, one of the great solution ideas as your business items for startups or for the future gas stations, new strategies and new businesses to the big companies. Okay. Thank you very much, and this is end of today's presentation. And today's presentation is about rebuilding the business strategy in the era of the digital transformation. And my final conclusion is that whether the company is big or whether the company is just a startup, the approaches we may have to choose is very similar. So design thinking is a very powerful tool in creating a lot of business ideas. That's it. And the next class is the final class of my series of the building the business strategy. And in the last class, I want to cover two things. One is what could be the required capabilities of a person, required capabilities of the talented person in the fourth industrial revolution. And also the second topic is that the business model innovation. So in my today's class, there's something about the business model. So in my next class, I will talk a little bit more about the business model and how innovation in the business model is important, and then how do we try to make more innovations in those business models. Okay. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in my final class. Okay, thank you.